What is going on, guys? Chris with Journals, Comics, and Pop Culture. This video today, guys, is talking about return on investment when it comes to getting your comic books graded, whether that be CGC, CBCS, or any of the slab services out there. I've been talking with some folks in the comments and discussing what it means to slab your book and the risk that you're taking, and I want to talk to you guys about how there's always a risk and it's not always a guarantee to bring you a larger return on investment. Alright, so in order to help me provide context to this, I have a book here today that we're going to be utilizing, the Overstreet Guide to Grading Comics. Big shout out to Alex Comic Hoarder who put me onto this book, and I am loving it. I still haven't read as much as I wanted to yet, but I'm going to use one main thing in this book today as a resource. I don't know if you guys can see that there, but it's right here. See that? Yeah. So alright, before I go into this book though, let's talk about this. So this is obviously for those who want to sell. You know, certain collectors will slab books just to keep them in their collection. They have no intent to sell them, at least in the short term. This is a situation where you have a book, or you want to get your hands on a book, and your intent is to ask the question, do I want to slab this book in order to put it back on the market for sale, in order to get that higher return on investment or that higher profit margin, okay? So we're going to use some examples, just any generic book, not a specific book, but obviously the 9.8 slab books, especially CGC, are going to almost guarantee you a higher profit margin and a higher return on investment than a raw book that you declare a 9.8. I mean, we know that 9.8s are that cream of the crop. It's that magical number. A lot of people that speculate on books, or that even buy slab books just to buy slab books, seek 9.8s. And I don't understand this. It's a bit much for me. But there are collectors that will either buy or get their raw books slabbed, just knowing that they're going to come back a 9.8, or hoping that they come back a 9.8, or buying those that are 9.8, and they're not even keys, right? They're just random books, but they love that 9.8. So that goes for any kind of key or semi-hot key book. Obviously, you can look at Silver Age keys or Bronze Age keys, where you know, the difference between a 9.6 and a 9.8 is going to be thousands of dollars. Now, let me bring this book up here and show you guys why it's important to understand risk. Not every book that you send in is going to automatically increase the value of that book and get you a higher return on investment. Okay? And remember, you got to take into considerations cost. Cost of getting the book graded, that is, sending it off to CGC or CBCS. Let me show you guys something. This right here is Overstreet's. Now, I understand this isn't specific to what CGC uses, but look at the bottom blue line and the top red line are basically the range of a book if it has a certain amount of defects. So if a book is anywhere between 4 and 6 defects, okay, it can be basically a near mint minus, which is what, a 9.2, to a fine, very fine. Let me explain that again to you guys. A book can have 6 defects. Actually, not a near mint minus, I'm sorry. Very fine near mint. A 9.0. A book that has 6 defects can go from a 7.0 to a 9.0. Based on this range, okay? So, this is important for books that are in that range specifically. If I had a book that I believe, by eyeballing it, I could say, look, honestly and ethically, I could say I think this book is a 9.2 to a 9.4 because I noticed that there was only 5. I think you can have 5, 4, maybe 4 defects with the book, right? Say you have 4 defects that I see. I'm not a professional grader, and I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to put this raw book on the market, and I'm going to say it's a 9.2 to 9.4. And when I go and I look at fair market value for that range, and say fair market value for that range for this book is $440 to $500, I'm going to ask $500. I'm going to ask $500. I might take a best offer, right? I'm going to ask high, but still within range that I think is ethical and just, okay? Now, if I sell that book and I put the money into getting the book graded, extra cost into it, and it gets that high grade, the 9.4, that's going to most likely guarantee me a return on investment, right? Because now a raw 9.4, if a raw 9.4 is 500, I might be able to sell that book slab now for 700, right? $650, $700 maybe. But as we know, that range is very wide. What if that book comes back? What if I missed one defect? By my naked eye, I'm not a professional grader. What if I missed one defect? And what if one of the defects was a little bigger that really was a decent defect that brought that grade down, and that book comes back a 7.5 when I thought it was like a 9.2? Or even, let's just even say an 8.5. What if it comes back an 8.5? Because that's in the same range here, I believe. Let's look at this again. If I'm thinking a book is a 9.2 to a 9.4, I said it had what? 4 defects, right? Yeah. So it's got 4 defects. I'm looking at 9.2, possibly a 9.4 on the high end. I miss a defect. A very fine can have 5 defects. Actually, a very fine minus. So that book could come back an 8.0 still. According to this, and CGC isn't always consistent. So I'm taking a big risk by sending that book in if I am not confident in my grade. Because say it comes back an 8.5, and the fair market value for a graded 8.5 in that book is only, let's just estimate, $300. Now, I could have sold my, say I put that book raw as a 9.2, 9.4, and I asked $500 and somebody offered me $420, and I take it, okay? It's $420 in my pocket. But if I send this book in to CGC, I'm paying shipping to send it out. I'm paying, obviously, the fees to get it slabbed and graded, and then I'm paying the shipping back, okay? And then it comes back an 8.5. And now the fair market value for that book is $300 slab, not raw, slabbed. And I sell that book for $300. Not only am I out the $120 in terms of final sale, because if I would have sold it raw, estimating the higher grade of $420, take the $300 away, that's $120 more I could have made. I'm also out of pocket whatever I spent to send that book in to get graded. Okay? That's why there's not always a guarantee on return on investment. And it gets tricky. I mean, for any grade range, but really, I personally believe that the biggest grade range that's tricky are those high near mint ranges. I think it's really hard for us to tell the difference between, like, say, an 8.0 to a 9.0, or an 8.5 to a 9.2, or even a 9.2 to a 9.6. And those grade ranges really affect key books and their value. You know, whether they're newer key books that are worth anywhere from $100 to $500, depending on the grade, or whether they're like a Hulk 181, where it jumps from, what did I say, 9,000 or 10,000 to 17,000, right? The same goes for this book. This is why I stuck right now with keeping this. Well, not that I'm going to sell this book, but I did this looking for this book. As a buyer, I went in to say, what should I spend my money on? Should I spend my money on a raw or a slab? And it's not always the best route as a buyer to buy slab. I could have bought a slab book for the same price that I got this, at about a 2.5, 3.0. Maybe. But I got this raw, and I believe this book is a 4.5. I think the seller said 4.0 or 4.5, one of those, and then I even gave it a press afterwards. And I think I could give it one more press to make it look even better. So if I bring this to, if I send this, I spent such little money on this that if I send this to CGC, and even with the cost it would cost me, I'd have to get a 3.0 on this book to basically break even of if I would have bought that 2.5 that was already slabbed. So you see what I'm saying? And now let's reverse this psychology here. Let's bring up, let's do this. Let's bring up, and I'll use this as our final example here, and then I'll say my final words on this. But let's bring up Fantastic Four 49. Okay, say I press this up. Yeah, I actually, I don't even, did I even press this book yet? I mean, this book is clean, guys. For a mid grade, it has a little bit of chip down at the bottom. It's got some spine wear, but not even that bad. It's got 1, 2, 3, maybe even 4 spine ticks. A little discoloring, a little color breaking along the edge of the spine, but only about, what I say, 4 spine ticks, a little bit of wearing down there. A little bit of rounding and wear up here. Of course, a little bit of chip right here. The cover is beautiful with no color breaks or creases at all. None. None. And the pages are flawless. The back cover is even better than the front cover. I mean, if I gave this a press, I'm going to say that this book is a 5.0, right? So I'm going to put this on the market as a 5.0, guys. And we're going to pull up real quick. I got cover price on my screen that you guys can't see, but I'm going to pull up on my phone too, right here on eBay. I'm going to look at, we're going to see if we can do sold. Fantastic Four. 49. 5.0. Okay, we're going to look at raw books. Okay, that are declared 5.0s. Look at, so we got one. Oh, let's look at sold. We got one selling right now for $430, 600. Oh, that's slab. Let's look at sold. Sold books only. They're all slabbed. Here's a raw one. $400. Oh, that's a 4.0 for $400. So there's one sold for $400. Let's look at cover price, and that was a 4.0. Right down the middle, mid range here. Average sale is $370. So when you look at a 5.0, and with that $400 one sold, I'm going to say that at a 5.0, and knowing what I bought this for, I could probably sell this for $400. That's what I'm going to say. I'm going to say 400 bucks out of 5.0, okay? If I get this slabbed, all right, and CGC decides to say, oh, you know what, I found more defects than you did, I'm not going to call this a 5.0, because let's look back to the chart here, guys. The range widens as the grades get lower, okay? So what does that mean? That means my 5.0 can have anywhere from 7 defects to 13 defects, right? But you know what else can have 13 defects and 10 defects? A very good minus. Was that a 3.5? So, but you know what else can have 13 defects? A good. A good. So say I count 13 defects on that, and I still say, oh, I still think it's a 5.0, right? A good is basically a 2. So the 13 defects ranges from a 2 to a 5.0. So I send this to CGC. I'm thinking it's a 5.0. Let's just say it comes back a 2. I mean, what do we say? A 2.0? Let's say it comes back a 2.5. I doubt it. What is a 2.5 average sale of this book? Slab. 288. Even a 3.0, not much higher. 309. How about a 3.5? 331. I could say this is a 5.0 raw and sell it for at least $400. At least. Okay, raw. If it comes back anything lower than 4.5, it looks like there's a couple that sold for over 400, but the average sale is still slightly over 400. There's one that sold for 500. But I would have to get at least probably a 4.5 on this book to make maybe right now, because this book continues to climb, a 4.0. But if I got back anything less than a 4.0, I would probably not be able to sell it for $400. And I would have paid all the cost to send it out to CGC and get it slabbed. So my profit margin or my loss will be even bigger. See, so this is what I'm trying to explain to you guys. And I want one other thing to be clarified too. When I just sent my books out to CGC right now, first off, you have to have them all in the same tier. If they're not in the same tier, you're going to be charged double shipping. I originally was going to do 9 books, and shipping was like 50 bucks. I ended up sending 13 books, and shipping was like $62. I added like 4 more books, and the shipping only went up like 12 bucks. What I'm trying to say is the more books you send at once, the less shipping is going to be per book, because you divide shipping costs per book. And if I send books to CGC, I'm going to send all of them in a medium flat rate box, even if I send 1 or 2 books. I'm going to put them in a Gemini mailer, and I'm going to send them in a flat rate box, which is only a medium flat rate box, which would only probably be maybe $5 more than if I just sent it priority in a Gemini mailer, okay? So it's going to cost you less. The more that you send at once, you divide that shipping cost between more books, and the price per book or the cost per book is going to be less. So to maximize your return on investments too, if you're sending books out to CGC just to sell and flip, you want to send as many books out as possible at once, because shipping costs are huge. I remember when I sent last year when I sent books out, I think I did what, 7 or 6, and my shipping was still like $49. So I did 13 this time, and it from 7 it only went up like what, $15, $16. So sending 1 book out, all those shipping costs, and remember, you got to pay money to get it shipped. And if it's a higher valued book like this that I'm going to say is worth like at least $400, I'm going to pay for $400 worth of insurance. And I know that CGC has a cheaper return shipping, but they only cover up to $100 worth of shipping. So say you send 10 Silver Age keys out, and you have $1,000 worth of value. Well, if you take that cheaper shipping cost, you're only getting insured for $100. So if your books get lost or damaged, you're only getting $100 back in your pocket. Yep. So I'm going to wrap this video up there, guys. Again, getting a book graded and slabbed does not automatically equate to a higher return on investment or a larger profit margin. You're always taking a risk. CGC and these slabbing companies, they said it themselves, it's an opinion. There's a range of what that grade might be. You might get a higher grade than you expect, which is kind of like hitting the lottery, or you might get a lower grade than you expect, and you ended up taking a bigger loss. So that's the name of the game, guys. Don't get so caught up on the fact, well, I want to sell a book, I should just get it slabbed because that means more money. It's not like that. You have to look at all of the variables and understand this from a business aspect, from each side of the coin. All right, so that's my spiel for you guys tonight. Thank you guys so much for watching. Leave some comments. Love to hear your guys' thoughts. If you have not subscribed yet, please do so. And until next time.